When people think of Liberty Island, they think of freedom. They think of immigrants arriving by ship. They think of the towering figure of the Statue of Liberty, torch raised against the skyline of New York Harbor. What they don't imagine is a border war, not a war of cannons and bloodshed, but a war of paperwork, patrol boats, arrests, and stubborn political pride. A jurisdictional siege that lasted centuries. This is the story of how New York and New Jersey fought over the muddy edges of Liberty Island, and how even America's most sacred symbol was shaped by boundary disputes. To understand this conflict, we have to go back long before Lady Liberty arrived in 1886. In the 17th century, colonial charters were not drawn with satellite precision. They were vague, often based on rivers, shorelines, and assumptions. When the English seized control of New Netherland from the Dutch in 1664, the Crown granted vast territories to proprietary colonies, including what would become New York and New Jersey. But here was the problem. New York claimed the Hudson River and its islands. New Jersey claimed territory up to the middle of the Hudson. And Liberty Island, then a small muddy outcrop known as Bedloe's Island, sat awkwardly in between. The ambiguity didn't matter much at first. The island was small, windswept, and strategically minor. But as maritime trade expanded and New York Harbor became one of the busiest ports in North America, jurisdiction became power. Power meant revenue, customs duties, docking fees, policing rights. In 1834, after decades of confusion, New York and New Jersey signed a formal interstate compact. The agreement drew a boundary line through the harbor. The compromise was strange but clear. New York would retain ownership of Liberty Island and Ellis Island. New Jersey would control the submerged lands surrounding them. It was a legal balancing act, surface sovereignty for one state, underwater jurisdiction for the other. At the time, it seemed settled. But geography is never still. Through landfill expansion in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, both Liberty Island and nearby Ellis Island grew dramatically. The federal government expanded Ellis Island from just over 3 acres to more than 27 acres to process millions of immigrants. And here's where the dispute reignited. The original 1834 agreement only covered the natural island, the landmass as it existed at that time. But what about the new land created by dumping fill into the harbor? Who owned that? New York argued that since it owned the island, expansions belonged to it. New Jersey argued that the new land sat on submerged territory that legally belonged to New Jersey under the compact. This was no minor technicality. By the 20th century, Ellis Island had become one of the most symbolically powerful sites in America. The gateway for over 12 million immigrants. Taxation, policing authority, and state sovereignty were at stake, and tensions escalated. There were moments when New Jersey police asserted authority over parts of the expanded island. There were legal challenges. There were jurisdictional confrontations over everything from health inspections to building codes. Though not violent, these standoffs were serious. This was not merely symbolic rivalry. It was about legal identity and state power. The conflict ultimately reached the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court of the United States. In 1998, in a landmark decision, the court ruled that the original natural portion of Ellis Island remained part of New York, but the landfill expansions, the majority of the island's current footprint, belonged to New Jersey. It was a rare example of the Supreme Court physically redrawing a state boundary. Today, Ellis Island is legally split between the two states. Liberty Island, however, remained entirely under New York jurisdiction, despite being geographically closer to New Jersey's shoreline. Look at a map. Liberty Island sits just 2,000 feet from Jersey City. It is much farther from Manhattan, yet it belongs to New York. Why? Because history, not proximity, determines borders. This peculiar geography continues to confuse visitors today. Tourists board ferries from both states. The National Park Service administers the site federally, but beneath the symbolism lies centuries of legal maneuvering. Even the Statue of Liberty itself, gifted by France and designed by Frederick August Bartholdi, stands atop land shaped by colonial grants and interstate bargaining. Freedom's pedestal rests on paperwork. The siege of Liberty Island was never fought with muskets. It reveals something deeper about American federalism. States are not abstract entities. They guard their borders fiercely. Harbor access meant trade dominance. Trade dominance meant economic power, and economic power meant political influence. New York, with its booming port and financial center, had everything to gain by securing symbolic and territorial control. New Jersey, often overshadowed by its larger neighbor, had everything to prove. This wasn't just about mud and marshland. It was about identity. Even today, subtle rivalries persist between the two states in sports, infrastructure, and tax competition.
The Liberty Island dispute
Reminds us that borders are negotiated realities, not natural truths. They are shaped by compromise, court rulings, and occasionally stubborn pride. And perhaps the greatest irony is this: the Statue of Liberty, a global icon of unity and welcome, stands in waters once contested by two American states. Her torch symbolizes enlightenment, but her foundation symbolizes negotiation. The harbor beneath her once sparked colonial arguments, police patrol disputes, Supreme Court litigation, centuries of bureaucratic struggle. The myth of freedom often feels clean and heroic. The reality is more complex. Liberty Island was not born solely from ideals. It was forged through charters, compacts, and courtroom battles. It teaches us that even national symbols are grounded in human conflict. Sometimes quiet, sometimes procedural, but always consequential. So the next time you see the Statue of Liberty rising against the skyline, remember, beneath her lies a history not just of revolution and immigration, but of muddy shorelines, shifting boundaries, and a long-running jurisdictional tug-of-war between New York and New Jersey. Even freedom, it seems, has borders. And sometimes, those borders must be argued line by line.